Now we're gonna go into Netflix, and we're gonna talk about something called the the Bonfire of Destiny, which I keep calling the Bonfire of Density. But
Right, that
oh,
is on Netflix.
yes, and you saw it,
I'll
Sharon.
have to take this one. Yes, I
Yeah.
saw this one, so I'll tell you a little bit about it. Again, it's like the last film. It's based on true events. I think Bonfire of Destiny makes it sound a little bit soapy, but the actual it's a French drama, and the French drama is entitled Le Bazar de la Charité. Basically, it's based on the real events. There was a fire in 1897 in Paris, where there's this bazaar, a charity bazaar, as in the name, the Bazaar de la Charité. It's run by the local Catholic community, and it was set up in this basically almost like a prefab building, sort of wooden with plaster, with a stone facade at the front, and there's only one way in or out, and they had an early prototype cinematography booth where people could see like the early films.
Yeah.
And there was basically a fire started in this booth, and it spread ferociously very quickly. And in the ensuing panic, something like 136 people were killed.
Ooh.
Where they couldn't get out of the building, and the majority of them were women. And a lot of the aristocratic men who were with them, and the bourgeoisie, as they were called, who were with them, they managed to get out, but their wives and their daughters didn't. It wasn't unique. It wasn't entirely women who were killed. There were there were a few men were killed, but it was something like 6 men to 130 women.
Oh.
And this drama is about, basically, it's taking the lives of 3 women and how they were affected by the fire. One of them is like a matron. She's married to this really domineering politician, and you see the story through her eyes. And then you see her niece, who is this sort of young ingenue, and she's there with her fiance and her family. And then there's her maid. And you see the drama as it's in 8 parts. It's the first episode is the fire, and then you see the consequences of this, and it goes into the politics, and it goes into the scandal, and goes into their lives. And one of the real facts about this fire is that some people from the cafes nearby basically smashed in windows and went into the building and dragged some people out, and they made a hole in the walls. Whereas a lot of these, the wealthy and the privileged men fled for their lives. The chef and the cook from next door and some of the busboys, they were the ones who sort of went in and risked their lives to bring out others. So and there is an element of class in this, an element of, there's they're called the anarchists. So there's this sort of political movement. So you get a snapshot into the life of Paris at the end of the 19th century and the lives of these women, and how this unequal society, how it was sort of basically shone a light on the fact that how unequal the society was in those days. So that's basically it. Yes, it's an 8-part drama. It's in French with subtitles, and it follows the lives of these 3 women and the events after this fire.
All right, so a bit like how you were talking about 1917 and how, well, from what you're saying, like with the language they were using, it sounds as if they made a film set then, but supposed to speak to people now because that's the way most people speak now.
Yes.
Would you what you're talking about, this like the whole sort of the class level and everything like that, it seems to be a bit timely. We know how people are talking about class divides all over the world and all that kind of stuff. Would you say that it's kind of something like that that's been made about that time, that almost like the more things change, the more they remain the same, or however you say that in French?
Well, yes, absolutely. Because you see the people who are the most courageous and who showed the most sort of character in there are not the people who educated and who've been raised in privilege, but often it's people who formed their own sort of moral standards, and
it's almost a bit
Grenfell
Grenfell-y.
sort of came out better of it. It's a bit sort of what? Sorry.
Grenfell, like Grenfell Tower.
Yes, yeah. How they were, So yes, they've certainly got those elements. But when you see one of the rescuers of one of the characters is part of this sort of anarchist group, and when they talk about anarchy, they basically talk about they want the right to vote, and they want to have free education and things like that. So their sort of radical ideas are not that radical to our minds. But in these things, you do get sort of murders, you get romance, you get sort of family tensions and politics and all sorts of things all tied up in it. So it's not just the simple story. It sort of takes this sort of historical premise and then builds a drama upon it.
Oh wow!
But yeah, I found it was, I really enjoyed it. I thought if you don't like subtitles, then it's probably a non-starter. But I don't mind subtitles or foreign language films at all. And I just found it really engrossing. I really enjoyed it.
All right, and you started talking about the women in the program. So does it really look at that whole sexism back then or something like that? Because obviously
there's certainly elements that one of the women, the young girl who's like, she's just making her debut in society, but she's engaged.
Yeah.
And you see her, she's been raised in a certain way with an expectation that she'll marry the man that her parents have chosen her. And this is the first time during this incident where her fiancé basically leaves her in the fire, and the man who rescues her is one of these anarchists, and she becomes drawn to this anarchist. So she suddenly sees a different perspective. She's no longer content to just do what she's told anymore, because you can see that the man that's supposed to protect her fiancé, left her, and the man who came into the fire and saved her is this sort of peasant who's supposed to be beneath her and is supposed to be without honour and without dignity.
Yeah.
Whereas he's the one who was the most courageous. And so it turns her world upside down, as it does with all these women. So yeah, you certainly see how it's the beginning of almost like her liberation, in that she sees that the life she's lived is not necessarily the ideal that she thought it was. Yeah, and all the one she wants. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So how many stars did you give it?
So I would give this a high 3. I think it's a good drama. I would definitely give it a high 3.
All right, yeah, okay. Now that's going on my list. Seen as ever since Charlie's Angels, I now consider myself woke. So as Chris so woke to the issue of women on screen. Right.
But the first episode is absolutely stunning. I have to say, the fire. I almost felt like traumatized afterwards. The way they filmed it was absolutely terrifying and engrossing. You can imagine just the horror of it. Of this event. So I would say, even if you don't want to watch the whole series, watch the first episode, because I've never seen a sort of film fire done in such a way that you really feel for the sort of fear that the people would have felt trapped in this building. Good, worth a watch, definitely.
Awesome, thank you. And now we go back to cinema.